Yeah, I got the microphone here. We'll definitely use it as far as, because I've got a video that I want to play, so it's got to come out of my computer speakers, and I think you'll be able to hear it.
Okay.
But yes, thank you, Pauletta, for the introduction. I am Dr. Ed Thomas. I've been in practice 24 years now. It doesn't seem possible because she said I'm a young pup. I'm still a young pup. I do look at my chiropractic practice as my ministry. I like to tell people I'm the first male in 3 families, 3 extended families, because my mother passed away when I was 12 and my dad remarried. So 3 family trees. I'm the first male to have graduated from college and not become a preacher. So I consider what I do in the office to be my ministry. And how can that be a ministry, you may be asking? I'm not behind a pulpit. Who's on our prayer list in our bulletins? Folks that are sick, and that's who I'm trying to take care of. So Frenay asked me to come in, speak a little bit on how the body's made, and then I kind of went a little bit deeper with how do we screw it up? If we're made in God's image, why are we sick? And so that's going to kind of be our journey tonight. I entitled the workshop "Fearfully and Wonderfully Made." And I really just kind of wanted to start off with a lot of this. It's a 5-minute video, and a lot of it you probably have seen pieces and parts of it, at least as far as the development of the fetus in the mother's womb. But it really, to me, it is a great eye-opening video. So let's just start with watching it first.
The embryonic stage of development begins at day 15 after conception and continues through week 8. Basic structures of all major body organs and the main external features are completed during this time period, including internal organs. By week 3, the brain, spinal cord, and heart begin to develop, along with the gastrointestinal tract. Here, the neural tube forms, which later becomes the spinal cord. Also, leg and arm buds begin to appear and grow out from the small body. In week 4, the brain begins to differentiate, and the limb buds grow and develop more. In week 5, the heart now begins to beat a regular rhythm. Beginning structures of the eyes and ears are noticeable. Some cranial nerves are now visible, and muscles connect to nerves. In week 6, the formation of the lungs begins and fetal circulation is established. The liver begins producing red blood cells and the brain develops further. Here, the primitive skeleton forms and the central nervous system is now detectable with brain waves. In week 7, we see a straightening of the trunk. Nipples and hair follicles form, along with elbows and toes. Arms and legs begin to move more frequently, and the diaphragm is formed. The mouth and lips become visible along with early tooth buds. In week 8, there is a rotation of the intestines, and facial features continue to develop. The heart development is now complete, and the embryo begins to resemble a human being. In weeks 9 through 12, sexual differentiation continues. Buds for all 20 temporary teeth are now laid down, and the digestive system shows activity. In this stage, the head makes up nearly half the size of the fetus. The face and neck are well formed, and the urogenital tract completes its development. Red blood cells are produced in the liver, and urine begins to be produced and excreted. The fetal gender can be determined by week 12 using an ultrasound, which will also reveal limbs that are long and thin and digits that are well formed. In weeks 13 through 16, a fine hair called lanugo develops on the head. The fetal skin is almost transparent as bones become harder. The fetus makes active movements and sucking motions are made with the mouth. The fetus swallows amniotic fluid, and external genitalia are recognizable at this stage. Fingernails and toenails are also present as the fetus's weight quadruples. It is usually during this phase that fetal movement, also known as quickening, is detected by the mother. Weeks 17 through 20 show a rapid brain growth with fetal heart tones that can be heard with a stethoscope. The kidneys will continue to secrete urine into the amniotic fluid. The vernix caseosa, which is a white, greasy film, now covers the fetus. The eyebrows and head hair may appear, and brown fat is deposited to help maintain the fetus's temperature. Muscles are well developed, and nails are present on both fingers and toes. During weeks 21 through 24, eyebrows and eyelashes are well formed. The fetus has a hand grasp and startle reflex. Alveoli begin forming in the lungs, and skin remains translucent and red. The eyelids still remain sealed, and the lungs begin to produce surfactant. During weeks 25 through 28, the fetus reaches a length of about 15 inches. There is a rapid development of the brain, and eyelids are able to open and close. The nervous system is now able to control some of the functions of the fetus. Fingerprints are also set. Subcutaneous fat is now visible under the skin. Blood formation shifts from the spleen to bone marrow, and the fetus usually assumes a head-down position. In weeks 29 to 32, there is a rapid increase in the amount of body fat. There is an increased central nervous system control over body functions, and rhythmic breathing is now established. However, the lungs are not fully mature. Pupillary light reflex is now present, and the fetus stores iron, calcium, and phosphorus. During weeks 33 through 38, the testes are in the scrotum of the male fetus. Lanugo begins to disappear. The fetus has a good, strong hand grasp reflex and increases in body fat. Earlobes are formed and firm. Fingernails reach the end of the fingertips, and small breast buds are present on both sexes. The mother supplies the fetus with antibodies against disease. The fetus is considered full term at 38 weeks, when the fetus fills all the available space in the uterus.
She had a pretty good script going through there, right? Describing everything. King David wrote it down a long, long time ago. He said in Psalm 139, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Fearfully and wonderfully made. I love that story right there, watching the fetus develop. Did you catch how many times she said the word nervous system? That's my focus as a chiropractor. Actually, let me, before I start there, pop quiz. Of all the systems in our body, nervous system, muscular system, digestive system, reproductive system, of all these systems in our body, which would you think is the most important one? Nervous system, exactly. I mean, think about kidneys. We can do kidney transplants these days, right? If your lung deflates, it can be reinflated. Cardiac, all of those. But if somebody shows up at the hospital and they're brain dead, that's it, because the nervous system controls everything. So, out of the human body containing more than 600 muscles, 90,000 miles of nerve pathways, and over 200 bones, all of which counterbalance each other. The body maintains posture and alignment, homeostasis, and coordination. It does that through the nervous system. And so as a chiropractor, that's always been my focus, is working on the nervous system. How many of y'all have talked on a staticky phone before? Everybody has, right? Can you hear me now? I mean, it was a whole commercial for a long time, right? That's kind of what chiropractors look for, is we look for static, if you will, in your nervous system between the brain trying to talk to your liver, or the brain trying to talk to your pinky toe, for that matter. If there's static between whatever the brain and the body part is, then that body part is going to get an interrupted, irritated, altered signal from what the brain had originally told it to do. So that's, if you thought chiropractic was about just kind of back and neck pain and headaches and that kind of stuff, that's actually the easy stuff that we take care of. As Pauletta mentioned, she's come in for some pretty organic stuff throughout the years that we've been friends, and has done very well because we've allowed her brain to communicate with those organs correctly. Just so that you know, and you may already do this, so hopefully I'm not insulting your intelligence, but the anatomy of the nervous system, so that you know, is your brain, that's the biggest part of it. Coming off the brain, coming down through your spine is your spinal cord. And then you have 24 individual vertebrae. In between each vertebra, you've got a bundle of nerves that branch off, and those are the nerves that go to your body parts. And again, when I say body parts, I mean pinky toe, liver, pancreas, tip of earlobe. I mean, those are all body parts. And if you touch yourself and you feel it, you're stimulating a nerve. That's how extensive the nervous system is. They've said, nobody's done this because it would be kind of gross, but they said if you pull away every part of you other than the nervous system, you would still recognize you, because you can see your outline in the extent of the nervous system. In the developing fetus, this is crazy. Neurons grow at the rate of 250,000 per minute in the child while it's developing. That's in the earlier stages, because as you'll see, we'll get to a number here in a minute, the baby's brain and spinal cord, also known as the fetal nervous system, is one of the first systems to develop. Knowing what you already do about the nervous system, what we've just said there, since it controls every function of the body, doesn't it make sense that it should be the first thing that gets developed? Because it then helps control the development of the cardiac system, the development of the digestive system. Brain development begins within the first week after conception, because it has to kick in and start doing its job, which is controlling the development of all the other systems, cells, organs, tissues of the body. Anybody ever hear of the Human Genome Project? Yep, it was the concept of it. Here's what they wanted to do was we've got the chromosomes, the 23 pair of chromosomes that make up the human genes, right? Males have, of course, the 23 and then the Y chromosomes. Females have the X chromosome. That's the big difference between the two of us. But what scientists wanted to do was to map out the sequence on all of the genes, all of the 23 genes in a human cell. That concept was developed in about 1984. They started the project in 1990, and when they hit 2003, what is that, 13 years, they considered themselves done at that point because they had mapped out about 85% of the human genome. They actually didn't finish mapping out all of it until January of 2022. So they started in 1990, and they just finished 32 years later. And if you look at that slide right there, it's estimated that as many as half of the human genome is programs on making the nervous system work. And so if all those genes that took 32 years for us to figure out, over half of them are expressed in helping the nervous system work. Sounds kind of important, right? So that's my focus as a chiropractor. The proper development and function of the nervous system is primary key to maximizing the human genetic potential of health, healing, and performance. So that's why the nervous system ties in exactly with what you all are doing in your other. I tried to do a class like this, a series of classes like this, and if you will, market it to various churches back in the early 2000s, and nobody wanted to do anything like this. And so I'm so excited that you're doing this, paying attention to your overall health. I think we can be better servants of God if we're healthy. If you're sitting at home sick all the time, you can't be out ministering, whatever that ministering for you looks like, because we all have different talents and spiritual gifts, obviously. Most of the newborn brain cells, think about this, you probably already know this, most of the newborn brain cells are formed during the prenatal period when it's developing in its mother's womb, not plural wombs, that would be clear. But the neural connections between them, they don't get developed, and that's part of being an infant. I mean, when you think about when a baby's born, it can only see about 18 inches because the neural pathways are completed back in the occiput, in the visual cortex back here. Interestingly enough, and this just ties in with the Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, they can see about 18 inches. How far would you say it is from a mother's breast to her face? About 18 inches, exactly. That's the way God designed it. They obviously they can't talk because the motor neurons involved with, think about how many muscles I'm using right now just to form the words to speak. Those neurons haven't made their connections just yet in the baby's brain. So while the neurons are there, neurons are individual nerve cells. While they are there inside your brain, those neurons have to talk to each other. And that's what learning and development is as the baby's growing through infancy and into talk. And even for that matter, for our, even as old as we are, we can still make new nerve pathways. It's called neuroplasticity, is the term that they're using for that, which is, I think, really kind of cool. However, this isn't necessarily just a pediatric class. We've all gone past the pediatric stage. So what I want to do moving forward here is really talk about what I call the basics in healthcare. I get questions from patients all the time. Doc, I heard about this one supplement. What do you think? And I look at their diet and I'm like, you need to eat some salad every once in a while. Don't worry about that supplement. Let's eat a little bit more fruit, right? Or the other one that I hear a lot is they get a Planet Fitness membership or whatever, and they try these machines, and they come in, oh, it hurt my shoulder, doc, and here's somebody who can't stand up out of a chair without, they can't do basic human motion. And so in my office, I really try to focus on helping them learn the basics. Once they get the basics down, then you can start expanding on that. John Wooden, the famous basketball coach, probably one of the best basketball coaches of all time, he said champions are brilliant at the basics. He's famous for running practices that were just free throws, dribbling, just the basics. Because when you get those down, then you can build from there. Michael Jordan, he's another famous basketball player, but he's heard of him. He said the minute you get away from fundamentals, whether it's proper technique, work ethic, or mental preparation, the bottom can fall out of your game. We got to focus on the basics. So the obvious question is, what do those basics look like? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. How would you all, since this is a class on health, how would you define health? What does health mean to you? Any volunteers?
I think for me, it's feeling good.
Okay.
Being able to do the tasks and things that are in front of me, and I think probably functions working.
Yeah. So there's some feeling and function involved there. A lot of times when I do, I'll go out to health fairs or give lectures like this at an office or something like that, and I'll ask that question, and either because maybe they're lazy, they don't want to engage with me or whatever, and I'll say, well, what does it mean to be healthy? And people will say, well, just not sick, right? And so then I'll turn that back around on them and I'll say, okay, if you're just not sick, how about this? Would you rather be pretty or just not ugly? Would you rather be rich or just not poor? Smart or just not dumb? Being healthy is way different than just not sick. So I'm glad you mentioned a little bit of functioning, because there is no single medical textbook in the world that defines health based on the presence or absence of symptoms. Now here's another example. You go home, go to bed tonight, you wake up, you're kind of thirsty, so I'm gonna go get a drink. You're walking through the bedroom, you stub your toe. You don't feel very good right then, do you? But are you sick? You're not healthy because you stubbed your toe, but you don't feel good at all. You gotta You get a ton of symptoms right then, and maybe a bad word or two. But you're not necessarily unhealthy because you stubbed your toe, right? Let's flip that the other direction. What are the major symptoms involved with somebody who has high blood pressure?
Headache.
There's very few, the headache being one of them, but high blood pressure in the textbook, they call it the silent killer because you don't know that you have it. So therefore there's no symptoms, no real big symptoms, but you're obviously not healthy. So defining your health on how you feel can be a little bit on the dangerous side. Now this is, proof of it right there. According to the Mayo Clinic, a heart attack is the first symptom that 50% of first-time heart attack sufferers have. Up to that point, they had no idea that they had cardiovascular disease. And then they have a heart attack.
Can I offer something on that?
Sure.
Having had a stroke, that's true. You don't realize it until you get things under control. And then, I know my blood pressure goes up.
You can feel, yeah.
But I didn't before.
Right, because it can be so just subtle, insidious in its starting.
Yes.
And so therefore, again, paying attention to function. Back to the nervous system. What I tell my patients, there's 3 primary divisions to your nervous system that are easy to understand without 4 years of chiropractic school. But the 3 divisions of the nervous system are sensory, what we feel with, motor nervous system controls our muscles, and then the autonomic nervous system controls all of your automatic functions. Autonomic, it's easy to remember. Sensory, motor, autonomic, basing your health just on the sensory nerves, if you were to do the math, only about 10% of your nervous system is contained in the sensory nervous system. Motor nerves and autonomic nerves don't have any sensory capabilities with them. Motor nerves controlling your muscles. If you contract a muscle, you can feel it move, right? But you can't feel the brain telling it to move. Again, using all of these muscles to talk, I can't feel the brain telling the muscles to do what they need to do, right? Autonomic nerves controlling organs, digestion, breathing, heart rate. You don't feel the brain controlling those functions in your body. Those functions are controlled through the autonomic nervous system. So basing your health just on the sensory nervous system, only being 10% of the nervous system, you're missing out on a whole lot of other nerves that control the function. And so yes, usually it is kind of not always, but it can be a slow downhill slide to where you don't realize it until you do hit the bottom. So I'm not glad that you hit the bottom, but glad that you bounced back. So I've asked the question, what are the basics? This is kind of what I boiled it down to because I know healthcare is complicated, right? Eating, goodness, as far as nutrition is concerned, spend 5 minutes on the internet and your head about explodes, right? So I'm kind of a simple-minded man. I don't try to make things complicated for myself, and so therefore I try to make them as simple as I can for my patients because again, this is the basics. Now, classes like this are going to build from the basics, and I do encourage my patients to do that, but this is where I start all of my patients. So if you will, think about that scale there. Let me look at it from your perspective. Okay, left side, right side. So on the left side there, we need to eat well, move well, and think well consistently and persistently. In other words, it's not gonna, if you do 10 push-ups a day for 5 days, that's not gonna change your life. But we do need to move well consistently. We need to eat well consistently. We need to think well consistently. On the other side of the scale, what causes our health issues, and this, in English class in high school, they encourage us not to use words like never and always, exclusionary statements like that. You can use always with this word. All of our health issues come from either physical stress, chemical stress, or emotional stress. Usually a combination, it's not just one. And hopefully this isn't news to you. You're gonna have physical, chemical, and emotional stress in life. I personally, and I'm glad Pauletta said this in her opening there, I personally feel this is where some of our spiritual attacks come from. It can be spiritual warfare. Satan wants to destroy us, not because he hates us, he hates God. And he knows that God loves us, And so if he can destroy us, he knows he's ultimately hurting God. And so I think he uses things like this in the spiritual warfare. Johns Hopkins University said the typical American today goes through more physical, chemical, emotional stress in 30 days than their grandparents did in their entire lifetime. How about the physical, chemical, emotional stress over the last 2.5 years? You think it's gone up? I mean, it says in 30 days there, we might be down to about 15 days with the stress that we're under in our society right now.
You know what, you put you said physical and emotional,
Mhm.
that's two of the, the heart and mind.
Right, exactly. So, what are the basics as far as physical stress? Well, let's define it first. Physical stress is basically how your body interacts with the environment physically. How we sit, stand, have we been in any accidents or traumas, car accidents. I had a patient tell me one time, this was even before I started taking care of you, Paula. So I mean, I probably wasn't in practice maybe a year and a half. And he's laying on the table, and I'm just about getting ready to push on his back when he says, "Oh, doc, I got thrown by a horse." Again, being a rookie practitioner, my brain froze. Other than to say, "Don't push." And so I kind of stepped back, and again, he's laying face down on the table, and so I'm trying to get my brain to kick back in. I mean, it literally just froze, except to tell myself to stop. And so I finally, in my head, I was like, okay, I need to ask him about this. And so I said, okay, did he drag you? I don't know why that was my first question. I should have asked, what hip did you land on, or something like that. But the first question that I asked him was, did he drag you? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, how far did he drag you? He said, about 5 minutes. I asked him a distance, and he gave me a time. So at this point, I was still struggling a little bit, but I was starting to, my wheels were starting to turn a little bit. But at the same time, he could tell I was struggling, because then he said, well, I mean, I said 5 minutes. I don't know how long it was. He said it was at least until the Walmart manager came out and unplugged the machine.
Oh.
I mean, he got me. But getting thrown by a horse and dragging, that would be a physical stress, right? So those are all major traumas. What about somebody who sits at a desk like this all day long, right? Or who sits on a couch, right, like this all day long, right? So those are what we call repetitive stress, as opposed to major traumas. All of those fit into the physical stress category. One of the biggies that I see with my patients is how they sleep. Proper sleeping posture, and I meant to bring a spine. Boy, it was a busy day in the office today. So if I seemed a little, how long did you wait today?
I don't know, longer than I usually would.
It was a busy day, and so therefore I forgot to bring my spine model. But if you will, picture my spine and me, and it's nice and straight right here, right? When you lay down at night, that's just what you want to make sure that you're trying to do with your spine, is you're trying to keep it in what I call a neutral posture. So if I were to lay on my left side, I don't want too small of a pillow. I don't want too big of a pillow, right? I want to make sure that I'm keeping my head in a nice neutral position. Again, when you lay on your side, a lot of times you'll kind of throw one leg up over the other one. That then rotates your lumbar spine. So what you want to do there is put a pillow between your knees to help keep that spine in a neutral position. If you were to lay on your back, the spine has a curve here in the neck, a backwards curve in the mid-back, and then another forward curve here in the low back. With the pillow, again, you don't want too big of a pillow, and you don't want too small of a pillow either. You want to make sure that it's supporting that curve there. And then the curve in your low back here is supported by putting a pillow behind your knees. That will help support the low back curve here. Those are the two recommended positions as far as keeping your spine in. Don't sleep on your stomach. If you sleep on your stomach, the first thing you got to do is turn your head to breathe, right? Now my head's not neutral, or my neck's not neutral anymore, right? Here's the other thing too. If you are sleeping on your stomach, you've got to use more muscles to breathe. It's going to make your belly bigger. Nobody wants a big belly. Don't sleep on your stomach. It's not good for your back. It's not good for your belly either.
That's good to know.
The reason that sleep is important is that's when we do all of our healing and repairing. We don't heal and repair during the day. Our body's just trying to keep up with everything. All healing and repairing is done when we're asleep, if we have good solid deep sleep like we're supposed to, and we don't irritate our nervous system more by the positions that we get in. So,
You know, I read during COVID that they recommend you sleep on your stomach because your lungs are in the back of your body, and if the weight of the organs in your body is on the lungs, you can't, they don't stretch as
I did hear that as well, and for that I would have to agree with that. And so what if hopefully nobody gets COVID, but I would take, and if you could, set up 2 pillows like this so that you can try to maintain a head in a neutral position and still be able to breathe. Breathing is important. You should breathe.
The other thing, whenever I had my eye surgery, I had to pretty much sleep on my stomach.
Right.
Because everything I had to keep my head, that eye protected and everything.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
That was odd.
It can be very uncomfortable. And again, though, remember what we're working on the basics. Trying to learn the basics, not necessarily working on playing with exceptions.
What is the best on your back, your side? Which is
Either one's fine, actually. Yeah, neither one is better than the other. It's a matter of which feels most comfortable to you, and therefore allows you to get the best sleep in that position.
Just keep your spine as straight as possible.
Right, exactly. It may even help if if you're on your, again, if you're on your left side and you're not sure if it's straight, have somebody look at you from behind, and just have, or what I have folks do as far as their workstation ergonomics, because again, workstation, that repetitive stress that we're talking about, I have them have somebody take a picture of them when they're sitting in their workstation so that we can make slight adjustments. I had one patient, we just could not clear up her right neck. It was just killing her. And we determined that it was definitely her workstation. And so she took the pictures. We raised her monitor an inch and her neck pain was gone like that.
Wow.
Yeah, just an inch. So it's not big adjustments usually, even with the pillows and that kind of stuff. It's not big adjustments. I do have some recommendations on pillows and mattresses that we can talk about those a little bit later, but it's vital, and that's why I started with it. Another big physical stress, and I'm glad I'm talking to a bunch of women here, is footwear. When we are what's called a bipedal organism. In other words, we have 2 feet and 2 legs. We don't have 4, or we're not insects. We don't have 6 or 8 either. But our feet provide us our foundation for when we are upright, and therefore arch support is important. The choice of footwear is important. A lot of people think chiropractors don't like flip-flops because there's no support to them. That's only part of the problem. When you are wearing a pair of sandals, even if they have the custom arch built in for your foot, if it's a sandal that doesn't have a strap around the back, every time that you pick your foot up, instinctively your brain says, grab that shoe. And so your toes flex, and so you've got a rigid foot that then when it strikes the ground next, as you're taking that foot, stepping forward, you're hitting the ground with a rigid foot. The foot should be soft and shock absorbing as it goes through the gait cycle. So if you're wearing a pair of sandals that doesn't have, I'm not saying don't wear sandals, just try to wear sandals that have straps around the back. That way your feet don't have to grab the shoe to pick it up. Because if it didn't do that, then you just walk out of the shoe, right? So it's kind of an instinctive thing. In my office, we do talk about the health of the arches, and just incidentally, I don't know if you know this or not, but as far as chiropractors are concerned, yes, we work on the spine, that's our primary focus, but if it's a joint in the body, it can be adjusted. And so cases of plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendonitis in the elbow, those all can be taken care of chiropractically. And one thing that we do for the feet is we do look at the arches. And some think it's an unfortunate effect of aging, but as we age, our feet flatten out. How many people have noticed that you've had to buy bigger shoes? Your feet's not getting bigger. If your arch is like that and it flattens out, and there's the distance for your shoe before, right, from there to there. But if it flattens out, now you need a bigger shoe, okay? The problem isn't that they flatten out. Again, that's part of the aging process. The problem is when one flattens faster than the other, because now you don't have as much support on one side, and so you're technically leaning. Even if it's only 3 or 4 millimeters, add that up through 6, 7, 8, 10,000 steps a day. It's almost like you're limping every step that you're taking. So arch supports, custom-made arch supports, I do recommend them a lot. Posture is a big deal. How your spine helps protect the nervous system is really, again, that's the focus of chiropractic. And here's just kind of proof of it. The American Journal of Pain Management says the effect of posture on health is becoming more evident. Spinal pain, headache, mood. Anybody ever heard of chiropractic helping blood pressure? It's been well researched. Chiropractic does really, I don't want to say lower blood pressure, because what if the blood pressure is too low? You don't want to lower it further. Chiropractic helps normalize blood pressure. Pulse, lung capacity, they're all among the functions most easily influenced by posture. Head in the forward posture. We actually have a new diagnosis code now because we're on our phones so much. It's called tech or text neck. Tech or text neck. Head in the forward posture can add up to 30 pounds of abnormal leverage on the cervical spine. In good normal posture, you see how my ear's kind of right over my shoulder right here? Every inch that it travels forward doubles the weight of what the muscles are holding up on the head. So if the human, let's say that my head weighs 10 pounds right there, and I move it forward an inch, now the muscles back here are holding 20 pounds. Do you ever feel anybody who's got tight shoulder muscles? Have them close their eyes and just kind of stand there, and I guarantee you their head's thrown forward like that. The reason those muscles, patients come in, they say, Doc, how do I stretch? I'm so tight, how do I stretch those muscles? They don't need to stretch those muscles, they need to stand up. Because the brain is literally saying, it's tightening those muscles up to try to get them to stand up in that proper posture. This is a crazy statistic right here. Forward head posture can reduce your lung capacity by 30%. How many people who have had COVID are sitting at home on Facebook? They can't breathe already, and now they're making it even worse by sitting there staring at their phone. Everybody always does, not me. I don't stare at my phone, right? Or whatever it is. There's your numbers right there. Screen time. Older folk, my dad's age, 2.8 hours. Boomers, 2.9. There's me in the Gen X, 6 hours a day. Boy, it doesn't feel like I'm on my phone 6 hours a day. But when I'm eating breakfast and looking at my phone, right? Lunchtime, yeah, it probably does add up 6 hours.
There was like 6 or 7 people in your office, and I remember looking around, all different ages. I said, what did we do before we had phones? Every single person except for the baby is on the phone.
I've been in other chiropractors' offices who've said no phones, and I don't know, I tend to allow people their freedoms, you know. But I mean, yeah, because they're literally here paying me to fix them to do this. It is what it is. We already mentioned seated workstations. C. Everett Koop. Anybody remember him? He was the Attorney General several years ago. He said, I don't remember the exact quote, but it basically boiled down to sitting is the new smoking. Statistically, if you sit for more than 60 hours a week, I think it is, and that's cumulative. Not, well, I only work 40 hours a week. No, that's cumulative. If you sit for more than 60 hours a week, your chances, you have a shorter lifespan than somebody who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day. It's crazy how much not moving affects us. And so, again, still thinking the basics, we're in the physical stress category. Not moving is a physical stress. Car accidents. We've all probably at least been in a little bit of a fender bender. The forces which are imposed on the cervical spines of passengers of colliding vehicles are tremendous, and if one attempts to calculate mathematically the amount of such forces, the results are unbelievable. I mean, I've seen the test. So back to the human head being 10 pounds, a 5 mile an hour bump, 5 miles an hour, 40 pounds. Just, I mean, it quadruples it just with a 5 mile an hour bump. So car accidents are big deals. Daily exercise leads to improved posture, range of motion, and functionality of your body. It also helps to relieve pain through strengthening key supportive muscles and restoring flexibility. So therefore, what's the best kind of exercise out there?
Walking.
Walking? When patients ask me that question, I turn around and ask them a question back. What do you like to do? Lift, okay. Paulette, I know Paulette loves to walk, right? So the reason that I asked them that question, if I told them swimming is the absolute best exercise to do, and A, they can't swim, or B, they don't have a pool, they'd be like, well, if it's I can't do it. They're not going to try to substitute something for it, right? And so therefore, you need to find, yes, I'm one of the crazy ones too. I like to lift heavy things. And I like to do it kind of fast too. People ask me what I do for cardio. I say, well, I lift weights faster. Daily exercise is so important to just do something. I do so anybody ever hear of the exercise movement CrossFit? And you may have seen some of their competitions on TV and that kind of stuff. I was certified to teach CrossFit for 10 years. I mean, the basic philosophy of CrossFit, man, it just clicked. It just really clicked. And so I truly love it's gotten kind of crazy, but the original form of CrossFit, if you will, and the definition of it says constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. With your daily exercise, I encourage you to think about that constantly varied. Do something different. If you are a walker, honestly, you get to that point where you're walking 3 miles a day, your body says, okay, we're gonna do 3 miles a day. We're gonna do 3 miles, we're gonna do 3 miles. It gets used to it. However, if you do 2 miles, and at the halfway point, you, I don't know, stop and do some squats, or maybe you find a park bench and do a couple of push-ups on the park bench, and then walk that mile back. Those 2 miles with that little bit extra would do you a whole heck of a lot more good than doing 3 miles every day. So I encourage people to vary their exercise routine. Don't do the same thing every day. This is pretty big right here. We do not stop exercising because we grow old. We grow old because we stop exercising. We are definitely designed to move. A couple little tips as far as just life, if you will. When standing, keep one foot, I don't know if y'all can see me, kind of keep one foot in front of the other. If you're going to be in one position, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but like Walmart doesn't have many cashiers left anymore. But your cashiers, most of their workstations have a stool built into there. If you can stand with one foot higher than the other and be able to change positions like that, that's actually pretty helpful for the muscles of your low back. Don't stand bent forward at the waist like this for an extended period of time. That is definitely not good on your low back. Bending forward like that just so increases the pressure on the discs of your low back. Again, the numbers are astounding. When you're lifting, always try to face whatever it is that you're going to pick up. Don't turn and lift. The bending and twisting at the same time is what really causes a lot of low back injuries. So if you're going to lift something, turn and face it, lift it, using legs as much as possible, and then turn and move with it. If you're going to have to lift something and carry it for an extended period of time, get it as close to your center of gravity as possible. Don't carry it out like this, in other words. Get it to your center of gravity as much as possible. And if possible, have somebody help you too. So, let's talk next about chemical stress. Any idea on what chemical stress is?
I think one thing that we probably, it's our food is full of
That's the biggie, and since we're talking the basics, since that affects everybody, that is exactly where I start, is our nutrition. Again, supplements are important. I take them myself. The key word though is supplement. They don't replace. They supplement a good, healthy diet. We do kind of need to think a little bit about environmental medications, prescription or non-prescription. Those are chemical stresses as well. Those chemicals are not designed. When God designed us, they weren't. He didn't think about. He did think about, but we're not supposed to have those chemicals in us in an ideal world. Anybody heard of Thomas Edison? Pretty smart fella. The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. That's kind of the core of this class, if you think about it. Great quote there. The person who this is big. The person who takes medicine must recover twice, once from the disease and once from the medicine. Have you ever listened to the side effects on a TV commercial for pharmaceuticals? It's crazy, exactly. How about this one? I know this is a big topic right now. Since 1989, vaccine injury compensations have exceeded $2.3 billion paid out to those receiving vaccines. The COVID vaccine is not, the vaccine manufacturers are not liable for anything with the COVID vaccine. I don't want to sit here and bash medicine too much because heaven forbid something happen. They're great at emergencies. They're great at emergencies. Not too good at keeping us overall healthy. Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So let's go over some nutrition basics. I think we already answered this question. It's complicated, right? Again, spend 5 minutes on the internet. Your head hurts. You don't know whether to eat meat or eat too much meat. I mean, it's just crazy. So here's what I want you to think about. This is our basics. There are 3 basic macronutrients: fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. We also have micronutrients. Micronutrients are vitamins, minerals, those kinds of things. For the most part, if you can see it, it's a macronutrient. Okay? You can see a chicken breast. Chicken breast is protein, right? You can't see a vitamin C molecule, right? That would be a vitamin, that would be a micronutrient. So basically, there's a couple of exceptions. If you can see it, it's a macronutrient. And that's where I want to talk about tonight, is macronutrients. So when we're looking at our food, without getting into a whole great big nutrition class and all that kind of stuff, how do we determine what is a protein, fat, or carbohydrate? My encouragement, at least for right now, we live in America, the fats are going to be there, so let's ignore them. There's good and bad fats. Yes, I don't want you to avoid them. Fats are not the bad guys that we were told they were back in the 70s and 80s and even back into the 60s. They're not the bad guys. There are good fats and there are bad fats, basically is what it boils down to, and we do need the fats. However, keeping it simple for the basics, let's just ignore the fats for right now. So that leaves us with the proteins and carbohydrates. In my office, I have 3 questions that I try to teach my patients to think about. So you open up your refrigerator, you got the food sitting there. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, okay, what did God make versus what did man make? We want to eat more foods that God made. Broccoli, God made that, right? Pepperoni pizza. It's heavenly, but God didn't make pepperoni pizza, right? That is a man-made product. So there's your first question. God made, man-made. We want to eat more God-made foods, right? As in spirituality, I do the same thing with nutrition. Nobody's perfect, right? I want you to think about it in ratios, okay? If you're here, man-made, God-made, and you want to be healthier, you just want to flip that ratio the other direction, eating more God-made foods, okay? So that's question number 1. Question number 2 comes out of the answer to question number 1. If you're eating something that God made, that implies at some point it was alive, right? Like a chicken breast came from a live chicken, right? Again, pizza, you don't go harvest pizza, right? So it was not alive at some point. So therefore, the second question is this right here. When it was alive, did it have a mother? If it had a mother when it was alive, then it's a protein. Okay, I keep using chicken breast as an example because that's an easy one. Chicken breast came from a live chicken, which was hatched from another chicken, right? So that's its mom, right? A piece of steak came from a cow, which came from another cow. That's how you determine if it's protein. If it had a mom, then it's a protein. Again, we're doing the basics. Yes, there is protein in peanuts. There's no mom associated with a peanut. I'm trying to keep it simple, right? So if it had a mom, it's a protein. Therefore, if it didn't have a mom, it's a carbohydrate. As an example, broccoli. There's no mom involved with a broccoli, right? There's no dad involved either for that. So therefore, when you're looking at something that does not have a mom, it is a carbohydrate. And so that's question number 2. Where we get in trouble typically is our carbohydrates. With the proteins, how much should we eat? I personally, I am not a vegetarian by any means. I'm definitely a meat eater. So what I tell my patients is have as much protein as you want. There's a couple of reasons for that. A, you don't get fat by eating protein. B, most people, not everybody, but most people tend to have a cutoff valve with protein. We just got back from vacation. We went down to San Antonio, Texas, and when you're in cattle country, you got to go to a steakhouse, right? My wife knew before she even ordered what her cutoff was because she normally gets a sirloin. That's her favorite cut of steak. And when you go to steakhouses around here, they're usually what, 9 ounces, 10 ounces, something like that. This steakhouse, they started at 14 ounces. She was like, I can't eat all that. So she knew that she had a cutoff out. And I've been that way too. You know, I've been eating chicken nuggets or whatever. I'm like, man, I can't eat another chicken nugget. But boy, you put a French fries in front of me, I'm gonna hound on the French fries. Well, French fries don't have a mom. They're man-made too, right? They're not God-made. So that fits in the carbohydrate category. So here's how we determine eating good carbs versus bad carbs. Third question, when you're looking at this carbohydrate, is it colorful and crunchy, or is it white and mushy?
White and white.
Mushy, okay? So colorful and crunchy. Colorful and crunchy. Broccoli, carrots, lettuce, tomatoes, spinach, asparagus. I mean, run down through the list. Those are all colorful and they're all crunchy, right? White and mushy. Potatoes, breads, pasta, rice. Potatoes and rice, who made those? They're God made, right? But they are on the white mushy side. So, if you're on a weight loss journey, trying to lose some weight, again, trying to keep that ratio, we're eating more God-made foods, but come on, I'm telling you, I had French fries for lunch. I love French fries. I could eat French fries probably 4 days a week. I'm not kidding, I love French fries. So, yes, it's a potato, it has some processing involved with it, but with the white mushy stuff, that's where so many people get into trouble, right? What we get from the white mushy carbohydrates is energy, because the white mushy carbohydrates break down to glucose in your bloodstream, blood sugar, break down to glucose like that, and then we have a bunch of energy. When do we need that energy? When we're awake or when we're asleep? Awake, yeah, that's a silly question, but yeah, we need that energy when we're awake. We don't need it when we're asleep. So therefore, if you're gonna have your pepperoni pizza or your French fries, eat them earlier in the day. General rule of thumb, everybody's a little bit different, but this gives you a general rule of thumb, is 7 hours. It takes about 7 hours for ingestion, digestion, and then to burn the energy that you get from your white carbohydrates. So whatever your normal bedtime is, let's just say 10 o'clock is a round number, come back 7 hours to 3 o'clock and don't consume any more white carbohydrates after that point. If you do that, and you do it pretty hardcore, remember, in the white carbohydrate category would also be sugar, and just regular old sweets, right? That fits into this category as well. If you do that pretty hardcore, you can actually lose weight while you're sleeping. because your brain is still burning glucose even when you're sleeping. And if there's no free roaming glucose in your bloodstream because you've not consumed any, your body will pull it off of your stores, your body fats. And you can technically lose a little bit of weight while you're sleeping. So remember that. God made man-made. Second question, when it was alive, did it have a mother? If it had a mother, it's a protein. If it did not have a mom, it's a carbohydrate. Third question on the carbohydrates, is it colorful and crunchy, or is it white and mushy? That's a pretty simple little nutrition program. I think so, at least myself. What about water? How much water are we supposed to drink on a daily basis? You're gonna drink while you're ancient now. I'm sorry? A bajillion ounces. All right, since you said it that way, I gotta tell you a joke. Anybody get offended by blonde jokes? Okay, this is a good blonde joke. This blonde was watching the news one night, and they had a report on there that there was 9 Brazilian men killed in a surfing accident. The waves were real big, and 9 Brazilian men died in surfing accidents one day. And she's looking at the TV, and she said, "How many's a Brazilian?" Water. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bodies right here, all different sizes. The old recommendation of 8 ounce glasses, you've heard that before, right? We'll do that math, that's 64 ounces. Since we're all different sizes, how can we all need 64 ounces? Doesn't make any sense at all. Take your body weight, that number, divide it in half. That's the number of ounces that you're shooting for. So I'm 200 pounds, so therefore I need to drink 100 ounces a day. I'm sorry? A bajillion. If you wait until you're thirsty, your thirst reflex, unless you're talking in a workshop like this, because I'm really thirsty right now. Other than that, if you wait for your thirst reflex to kick in, you're already 30% dehydrated by that point. So don't wait on the thirst reflex. Just hit your nut. The way I do mine is I just have it programmed through the day. I drink a glass first thing in the morning, and then a glass right before I go to bed. And Pauletta can tell you this, in my adjusting room, I've got a water bottle that holds 25 ounces, and so I've just got a program how many times I have to go through that water bottle in a day's time to get my 100 ounces. Now, if I drank 100 ounces all at once, no good, because then I'd just be going to the bathroom, right? If you spread it out through the day, then you're going to get to the number that you need to. If you're not to a bajillion yet, don't start tomorrow. Figure out where you are versus where you need to be, and then step it up incrementally over a 7 to 10 day time frame. If you do it that way, your kidneys will adjust to it, and you won't be running to the bathroom as much as you think you will be. Because that number is how much you need, right? And so your kidney's not going to get rid of it if you don't need it. Or yeah, it's not going to get rid of it if you need it. So water's a big, big chemical stress. Anybody know the top 2 side effects, or not side effects, excuse me, symptoms of being dehydrated? Top 2 symptoms of being dehydrated. No, that's actually down the list. Number 1,
Dizziness.
number 1's headaches, so you're kind of close. Number 1's headaches. Number 2 is hunger pains. How many millions of dollars do we spend in the American healthcare system because of headaches and because we're overweight? Yeah, just drinking water would solve a lot of problems in the American healthcare system. So, third type of stress that we want to talk about, mental, emotional. It's not the stress that kills us, actually. It's how we react to it. I had a great example. Some of the technology that I use in my office allows me to measure the physical effects of the emotional stress on that patient. In other words, how they handle their emotional stress. I had a gentleman in the office one day, and I'm doing the test on him, and I mean, he did not score very well at all. And he said, well, my wife's coming in tomorrow. She's going to bomb this test because she's stressed all the time. She scored way higher than her husband did because she handles her stress. So it's not the amount of stress that you have, it's how you handle it physically, emotionally on the inside. Incidentally, why is a chiropractor even talking about emotional stress? Anyways, I'm not a counselor. I don't even pretend to be. Our nervous system is at its basic level. Our nervous system is how we detect and react to stresses. Silly analogy, but follow me for 1 second. If somebody throws a baseball at my face and I don't detect it and react to it coming at my face, guess what? I've got a physical stress all of a sudden, right? So my nervous system sees that ball coming, I put my glove up and I catch it. Right? I detected and reacted to that physical stress. Exactly. So at its basic form, that's what the nervous system does. So as a chiropractor, if I can allow my patient's nervous system to detect and react to stresses, physical, chemical, or emotional, more efficiently, then their body's going to handle it better. On top of that, cortisol, anybody heard of cortisol, the hormone? It's the stress hormone in our body. Cortisol actually increases the activity of your pain receptors. So emotional stress can actually cause more pain in your body. There's lots of other things that we can talk about. Of course, to me, you got to start with your spiritual base scripturally. God tells us to cast all our cares on Him, right? I looked at the outline of the classes, so I know y'all are going to be covering this a little bit more. There are a lot of great tools out there. So that's the basics: physical, chemical, emotional. I want you to look at this slide right here and tell me what category do you see there: physical, chemical, or emotional? It's a trick question. All three of them are there. The back pain for 6 months or longer, abnormal chemistry, and then it gets down there to the bottom: emotional assessments, decision making, and social behavior. People who have had bad back pain can be bad members of society. I mean, literally, that's kind of what they're saying right there. So when we talk about the basics, it's important to learn the three categories, but at the same time realize we're fearfully and wonderfully made. That they do all play a role in each other. So what I want you to picture, and this is the example that I try to use in my office again. You've all been to Wilson County for the A County Fair, right? Maybe you've seen the stage show act where the guy gets up and he starts spinning the plates on the sticks, right? He gets one, or she gets one going like this, and, maybe another one, kind of not a big deal. He goes back and spins this one a little bit more. But by the time get on YouTube, you can watch a bunch of these on YouTube. By the time they get 10 or 12 or 13 plates out there, I mean, they're running back and forth like this. That's kind of what I think stress does inside our body, right? So what I want you to answer for yourself, knowing those three categories: physical, chemical, emotional, of those plates that you've got spinning right now, which ones did you put up there yourself? Because those are the first ones that you can start taking down, right? That's where this message by Bruce Lee comes in. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. I kind of think that's where we are in American healthcare right now. We know a lot, right? It's putting the rubber to the road to get things done. So I'm done. I want you to think about that right there. Do something today that you can thank your future self will thank you for. Questions?
I don't have questions. I have an observation on the mess.
Except Carol's
She had a